It's Neil from Wight Aero Machine Works. So this is a tool, more specifically a hammer. You can, in the right hands, it can build things, it can fix things, it can do a lot of positive things. In the right skilled, trained, practiced, experienced hands. In the wrong hands, it can destroy some things, it can disrepair some things, it can cob together something that doesn't look real great. Can do a lot. It can do great things or it can do not so great things, but this is a tool, and that's really what all tools are, is they can either help you or they can hurt you. So it doesn't matter how many tools you have, doesn't matter if you got the best stuff, if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't matter. So it's important to take the time to learn tools. That's what I've done. That's what I bring to the table in the paramotor community, is I've devoted the time and the energy and the money to use the tools and know how to use the tools and use them properly and efficiently and accurately to do good work. So that's why I exist, and I'd like to show you my tool collection. So I've been getting a fair amount of questions on some of the tools that I have and what I use and how to use it. So figured take an opportunity to kind of give you a whole overview of some of the tools that I've either made or accumulated over the last number of years that I've been working on paramotors. We'll start with the crank inspection table. This is just a surface plate with my tenth indicator. It's an interrapid tenth indicator. So this stuff came from when I was in the machining worlds, especially the indicator here, about the plate afterwards. But you don't need this elaborate of a setup. This is more of a high precision type of setup with the V blocks and everything. All you need to do is you need to be able to spin the crankshaft in a very even way. It needs to be in the same spot every time you rotate it. Yeah, so what a lot of guys will use is kind of a bicycle wheel truing stand, kind of the same concept. There'll be two posts with a couple of bearings on either side of it. That way you can rotate the crankshaft and use an indicator on the ends of it to figure out if your crankshaft is bent. Basically what you do is you're kind of mapping out how bent it is. So it's either going to be bent like this or it's going to be bent like this. Either these two halves are going to go this way or they're going to go this way. So you use your indicators to map out how bent that crankshaft is, and then you use a brass hammer, knock it back into place, and once you got it spinning nice and true, you can move on about your day. So moving on to the grooming table here, where we do all the paramotor magic. This, as you see right here, is basically the equivalent of your junk drawer that you have in your house. This is kind of my junk drawer here. All kinds of random hardware that I end up using. There are some goodies over here. There's probably, if you look real closely, you can see some of that. Move on to my specialty store-bought section. So Sky Sports USA, you can get all your Viterazzi tools. So I have Cosmos 300. This is a flywheel holder. You got to have this if you're going to be changing the stator. You can get away with some other tools that are out there, like a flat spanner wrench. You can probably stick in there to hold the flywheel, but this is just, it fits the flywheel perfectly, so it makes that task quite nice. This is the seal driver for the Moster 185. There's this little sleeve that goes over the threads on the crankshaft, and then you can drive your seal onto the crankshaft. You can get away with not having this, but it's just one of them things that makes that task super nice. They just slide on there nice and evenly like butter, because it can be easy to put your crank seal in properly, and then you got to try and figure out how to get it out, and it sucks. So this is the case splitter. I use this all the time. Again, Viterazzi tool, you can get it off the shelf, no problem. I use this for splitting the cases of Factory R and Moster. You can also use it for Atom 80 prop hub. I believe you can split the crankcases on the Atom 80 as well with this. There's a lot of different things that you can use this tool for. It's quite versatile. So if you are going to be splitting cases and fixing reductions and all that stuff, it's a good tool to have. These are the flywheel pullers. So all Viterazzi flywheel pullers here. The Moster is a fairly common size. I believe it's M22. I don't remember the thread pitch, but pretty common size. This is for Atom 80, and then this is for Cosmos. So for pulling the flywheel and you need to pull the flywheel off your engine for whatever reason. This is Polini crankcase splitter. So specialty Polini stuff, get it from PoliniPartsUSA.com, PoliniParts.com, PoliniParts.com, that's it. You can get this case splitter. You don't exactly need it, but man, it makes it quite nice when you're working on Polini. So when I do get a Polini in here, I'm ready to rock and roll with that. Then if you have a Moster 185, you probably have this tool. This is your belt tool, belt tensioning tool. Makes that task very easily. Moving on to other store-bought tools here. 3-jaw puller. Use this for clutch bells primarily, but there are also other things that you can use this for. Comes in handy very often. This is my cake decorating tool, although it's not really a cake decorating tool. It's made by Valco Cincinnati. Use this for crankcase sealant. I can lay a bead of crankcase sealant on the crankcases, and it's nice and smooth and even. It doesn't glob all over the place. This tool is pretty slick. This is a pneumatic rivet gun. This I use for 2 things. Rebuilding the exhausts on really any paramotor engine. They all use stainless steel rivets. Also use it for replacing a net on a paramotor that has a riveted on net. Makes that job a lot easier. You have to have something like this for doing the exhausts on paramotor engines with stainless steel rivets. You're not going to be able to do it with one of them small hand rivets. It's just not going to work. There are larger handled hand rivets. They're about this long or so. Maybe a little bit cheaper than pneumatic stuff. You can use that, but I'm set up for this. That's all this red stuff you see on there. That's the sealant that gets used for exhaust. It makes a mess. So I gave up on even cleaning it or doing anything. This is your standard piston stopper. This is a Tusk brand. Got this from Rocky Mountain. SkySportsUSA.net does have these as well. There's a Viterazzi version of it. Doesn't matter. It needs to stop the piston, so you can do some various maintenance things. This is a dial indicator that fits in your spark plug hole. Purpose of this is finding the exact top dead center when you need to set the ignition timing on your paramotor engine. If you have Polini 202, for instance, it doesn't have a keyed flywheel. You got to have a way to find the exact precise top dead center. So that's what this is for. It goes in the spark plug hole. You figure that guy out, mark where you're at, and then this is your adjustable piston stopper. So this you use to set the exact depth so that you can stop the piston exactly where you need it to be. And then you can hold your top dead center exactly where it's at and set your timing. That way you don't lose it. This, I haven't had to use this yet, thankfully, but this is used for pulling wrist pins. If you get a stuck wrist pin, if you blow your engine, throws metal through the wrist pin and the bearing and all that stuff, and you can end up with a situation where your piston is stuck with a wrist pin in it. So this is a wrist pin puller. Been lucky enough not to have to use it yet, but I do have it if needed. We are now going to move on to the homemade section. So the custom tooling that I have made throughout my screwing around with paramotors over the years. This is a tool that I made for driving out the rubber bushings in Moster and Factory R, and Moster and Factory R. They have the starters mounted on rubber bushings. So this I made for driving that out and driving it in. Works quite slick. These are tools that I made for the atom 80 reduction. Sometimes when you split the atom 80 reduction, the prop gear will get stuck in the cover, and it can be a giant pain to get that thing out. So this was cobbled together to be able to pull up and pull that gear out of the reduction. And then these are all sleeves and plugs that I use for heating up bearing races and bearing bores. It's important to be able to control the heat going into a bearing bore. You don't want to overheat that, because what will happen is if you change that molecular structure of that bearing bore, it's not going to shrink back to the correct size. You can also harden the metal, especially with the aluminum. It's kind of easy to overheat the aluminum. So really got to pay attention to the temperatures that you're working with when you are doing bearings. And that's what these are all for. I want to be able to heat that up quick and precisely. So I made all of these for all kinds of different bearing races, and this is just kind of the collection that I came up with over the years. And then this, probably one of my, this I use every day. This is my engine stand. So this is an old, this is an amalgamation of a bunch of different things, but primarily what it is an old Liberty engine mounting plate that we had scrap in because it had been bent to crap. I straightened it out a little bit, and now I have all of the mounting patterns on here, so I can put Sky engines on here, Atom 80, you name it, I can put it on here. And the nice thing about it is I can mount the engine, I can work on the engine, and then this transfers over to my thrust stand, which is outside. It just kind of clips in and swings in, and I got a couple of screws that go through, stays in place, and it works quite slick. And when I'm done with it on the test stand, pop it out, bring it back here, and can continue to work on the engine. So this works out really well. I use it all the time. Moving on to my drawer here where I got some other tests my diagnostic tools are at. So this is a set of plugs that I have that I've accumulated over time. A couple of valve stems in here. This is just a 3D printed deal. This is when you buy one of these vacuum pumps here, which I'll talk about in a second. It comes with all these plugs. These come in handy for random different jobs. This is my compression tester. When you're testing compression, you got to make sure that you have your Schrader valve in here. This is one of the, when you send your engine to me, every engine goes through a diagnostic. So that's one of the diagnostics that I will do is run the compression test on it. It's one of the ways that you determine the health of an engine coming in. This is an actual leak down tester. I don't use that much. That's more of a 4-stroke thing. Moving on to this pressure and vacuum tester here. I use this all the time. This is picked it up from Harbor Freight, Maddox brand. It can do pressure and vacuum. You got to have that. This is for leak testing and finding any sort of holes that are in your paramotor engine. This piece here threads into the spark plug hole. Hook this up to here. So that gets set up to that. This threads into your spark plug hole. And now for Moster and Factory R, I've got a couple of different sets of screws here. This is the block off plate for the intake side. And this is the block off plate for the exhaust side. What this is just a piece of inner tube that I cut up. Don't need anything too elaborate, so you can kind of see the outline of the gasket there. All it's got to do is block off those ports and not leak. That's the only thing it's got to do. So this is just kind of what I cobbled together to make that happen. So you block those ports off, piston down to bottom dead center, piston down to bottom dead center, pump it up to 5 psi, and spray it with your soapy water and try to find holes, find any leaks. Sometimes you got to turn the volume down on your radio or whatever just to be able to hear it. But you spray that soapy water around, and you'll find the leak one way or another. And then to test your crank seals, you'll pull the vacuum on. So you got both sides. You got pressure and vacuum. You pull vacuum to about 5 inches of vacuum and see how long it goes. You're looking for, when it comes to your pressure test, you're looking for it to hold 5 psi over the course of, if you're at 5 psi for a minute, you're pretty much good. If it drops about a psi a minute or so, generally I'll take care of that leak. They're perfect when they leave the shop. I don't let any leak go by, even if I got to take the engine apart 3 times. It's going to come to you fully sealed up. Next we have carburetor stuff. So this is my pop-off gauge here. Basically, it does the same as this. This is just a tool that I've had forever, so I've used this strictly for pop-off. You can get a different pop-off gauge. SkySportsUSA.net, they have the Vitarazi version of this. This is allegedly a Mikuni version, but got to have this for rebuilding carburetors. You have to have this for rebuilding carburetors. You can't just throw parts in there. And these are the metering levers. Metering gauges. WB37 type of carburetor. That's your tab there. This is for setting your metering height. Pop off and metering height work together to have a certain mixture for your engine. Those are both kind of work together to function the carburetor properly. So you got to have those tools to do that. So over here, these are the tools that I use for top end inspections. When you send your engine to me, I'm going to give you a report of the health of your top end. So your cylinder bore diameter, your piston diameter, and then what I do is I'll match the correct piston to whatever condition your cylinder is in, or if your cylinder is bad, we'll replace your cylinder. But these are the tools that I use to measure that. You can get away with not using these. These are the ring gauges. Again, this is something that comes from the machining world. So I had these. This one I had custom ground. This one, this for Atom 80. This I could go off the shelf. I forget exactly what size it is, but that's for Atom 80. This is for Moster 185. I don't have one for Cosmos yet, so I'll have to use micrometers here. But you need to have a dial bore gauge to be measuring cylinder bores. There's really no other accurate way to do it. And this is micrometer, so you can set your dial bore gauge off of these micrometers, but these ring gauges are nice. You got to have a set of micrometers to measure your cylinder diameter. Using a set of calipers is not going to do it. Calipers are not nearly accurate enough. So micrometers, dial bore gauge, you get the full report of your top end health, and also along with the crank inspection there, you'll get a crank inspection report if I do pull the crank out and split the cases and everything. So yeah, it's important stuff there. All right, so if you have any questions on any of these tools here, throw it in the comments. And yeah, this is what I use every day to make magic happen here at Wight Aero Machine Works. So if you don't want to deal with any of this stuff, if you don't want to buy all these tools and figure out how to use them and all that stuff, that's what I'm here for. Send me your engine. I will be more than happy to work on it. Again, you can get away with not using a lot of this stuff. There's ways around it, but I found that doing this day in and day out, man, having all this stuff is so much better. And if you're going to send your engine to me, you get the benefit of using all this stuff. It's just not slapping parts in and hoping for the best. Hi, so apparently we got completely sidetracked when filming that outro, so I'm just going to have to go ahead and do it this way. If you can see behind me, it's only a small fraction of what we got going on here at the shop. So Neil@wightaero.com is my email. That's a great way to get a hold of me. Yeah, that's pretty much the best way to get a hold of me. I got also the social media messages, all that stuff. I know I talked to some of you folks on there, but the email is really the best way. Yeah, give me your engine and I will turn it back to you as close to new as humanly possible. So thank you for joining me. I hope that you learn something and you see what you have, what is available here at Wight Aero Machine Works when you send me your engine. So I'd love to work on your stuff. Send it my way. I'll talk to you soon. Take care and God bless.